Welcome to the Bag Maker's Workroom. I am Chris with Simply Classic, and today is Thursday, January 22nd, 2026. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. We go live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't join us live, watch the recording on YouTube at any time. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified of when I post a new video or when we go live. So how is everyone doing this evening? We were watching the chat a little bit before we started, and a lot of you are cold, and we are getting ready to be cold too. Things are getting ready to change, right? Weather-wise. First of all, things are really busy here right now. And I'm sure a lot of you know there's a huge winter storm that's coming. It's going to affect a lot of the country. We're expecting to get hit with a lot of ice here in Augusta, Georgia area. And gosh, it's been so many years ago. I think it was 2014, maybe 10 years ago, we got hit with an ice storm and we were out of power for days. I mean, it was awful. It was cold, and we're not used to that here in Georgia. Okay. So I know a lot of you are in the storm's path too. I really want to remind everyone to please stay safe. Okay. Be careful out there. You know, ice and snow can be bad. So just really be careful. Make sure you're prepared. Here at the office, there's obviously a chance that we could lose power for a few days or maybe even longer. Last time we lost power from a storm was the hurricane, and we couldn't get online for almost a week. Now, hopefully this won't be that bad, but just kind of keep in mind if you're placing an order with us this weekend, you know, it might take us a little bit to kind of get things back up and running. Of course, we'll do our best to keep all of you informed if there's any shipping delays or if we do lose internet access. You know, understand there's only so much we can do. And of course, you know, even for shipping, depending on where you are in the country, a lot of times there's shipping delays because of storms. So, you know, we try to get everything out the day you order, or usually if it's after 2, it usually goes out the next day. But anyway, this week we might have some delays. So please be patient with us. Please stay safe. And hopefully you maintain power so you can sew is what I'm thinking. That's what I hope happens here too. So today, well, let's first say hello to Roxanne Riccio. She says hello from a very cold Wisconsin. I'm sure you are very cold up there. Tree 60 Handmade Bag says hello from a very cold and windy Wasaga Beach, Ontario. Oh, well, thank you for joining us. And Sandra Punt says, I have my popcorn and excitedly waiting to get started. So that sounds great. So today's a sewing episode, and here's what we have planned. We're going to start by going over what's new in the Simply Classic Scoop. Then I'm going to show you how you can hack the Sorella pattern to make it more of a masculine bag. We're going to feature our customers' bags in Artistry Avenue. And finally, we'll be giving away some patterns and do a Q&A at the end. So before we get started, please take a second to click the thumbs up button below. It really does make a difference, and I do appreciate it. So we're going to start out with the Simply Classic Scoop, and this is where I tell you what's going on here at Simply Classic. And the first one we want to address is the schedule for the next few weeks for our live streams. Today, of course, is the Sorella hack. The next Thursday is New Pattern Day, and that's when we're going to launch the Talise pattern, which was featured in last bag making subscription box. And I know a lot of you have seen it already, and a lot of you have been asking for it because I've seen it on the Facebook group. This is a good one. I think you guys are going to really, really enjoy it. So it's going to be released to the public on January 29th, which is next Thursday. And then the following week, I'll show you a hack to kind of get a different look on it. It's not going to be, anything drastically changing the look of the bag, but to maybe be able to eliminate some of the seams and stuff, we're going to do some pretty cool things. Then on February 12th, we'll look at what's trending on the runway for spring and summer, and those episodes are always a lot of fun. On the 19th, we'll hack the Simply Classic clutch pattern based on one of the runway trends. And then to close out the month of February, we'll talk about faux fur and hair on hide bags. Now, I'm going to be traveling quite a bit in February, so some of those episodes will be pre-recorded, but of course, my team members, Shauna and Taylor, will be here to answer your questions and to keep things running smoothly while I'm gone. Another thing I want to let you know about is for our Nina class. This is the March Nina class. We have one spot left in March, and that is an online class that you can join while you're sitting at home. We'll be making, of course, this bag, the Nina, which was inspired by a Michael Kors bag. And you should know that the Nina pattern is exclusive to this class. It will never be released as a standalone pattern. And that's typical for these leather classes. It's because really the patterns, the bags are put together a little differently. Usually you've got small changes when working with faux leather and real leather. And so all of our patterns are written for faux leather. And of course, these here are real leather bags. So again, the Nina is made with Italian leather, chunky hardware, which will be included in the class kit. The only kit color we have left is eggplant, which surprises me because eggplant, like purples, are some of our best-selling leathers. So if you'd like to make this bag and learn some new leather techniques, you can sign up at the link in the description of the video. So we found out this week that a few seats have been added to my Pins and Needles workshop in Ohio. It did sell out, and they wanted to add more seats and asked me if they could, and I said, hey, go for it. So Pins and Needles is a great shop in the Cleveland area, and it's Cleveland, Ohio. And so I'll be teaching basically two classes. We're going to teach the Fairhaven Tote and the Simply Classic Clutch in genuine leather. So we'll be using leather there. The shop has machines that you can rent if you're traveling, or you can bring your own. I know that some of you are already signed up before it sold out, but if you missed your chance, or if you've been kind of thinking about it, go ahead and check out the links down below. There should be, and I'm sure there are, more spots available because they pretty much double the class size. So we're going to have a lot of fun. I also want to remind you about the sew-along that I'm hosting next Tuesday, January 27th. It'll be on Zoom, so it's very interactive. You can either turn your camera on, you can leave it off, whatever you're most comfortable with, but I really enjoy it when we can see each other and we can actually talk. It's going to be like we're sitting down and sewing together in the same room. We're going to be making the Jamela wallet, and this was a hack that I did a couple weeks ago. It was inspired by a Dior wallet that I showed you, and so we're going to be doing something a little different. The cost of the sew-along is $39.99, and when you sign up, you're going to receive the Jamela PDF pattern. You're going to receive additional pattern pieces that you're going to need for the hack. You're going to get like a little list of what you need to prepare before the sew-along, and then a link to actually sew or join the Zoom sew-along. Also, afterwards, we're going to send you the recording so that you can go back and watch it at any time. So this is going to be a lot of fun. We already have quite a few people who signed up. Of course, the more the merrier. So we really hope that you consider it. It's always fun to do these sew-alongs. So finally, I have it's exciting news to us. Hopefully, it's exciting news to you too, but it's really exciting news to us. We're switching our website. We're going from Wix to Shopify. And we've been working on, I say we, Shauna is like the mastermind. She's been working on this for like 3 months, trying to get everything created and updated and ready to go. And tomorrow is the day we're officially switching everything over. So I say not much will change for you. Of course, you'll log in. It's going to look a little different, but there's going to be some really great benefits for you, which is really one of the main reasons why we decided to switch. You know how now the patterns expire after 90 days? That's not going to happen anymore. When you order a pattern, you're going to have an actual spot where you can log in and download your patterns at any time. So if you ever have to go back, reprint a pattern, or maybe you just didn't download it right away, no problem. You'll be able to do that. Those will be there forever. So you won't have to reach out to us. We won't have to get it to you. That's all kind of crazy how all that works with Wix. Wix has been great for us. It's just time to upgrade. So you get into the website, we might be down for a little bit tomorrow, but when you get into the website, you're probably going to need to either like reset your login or something. We're going to send out an email with more details about that. But I wanted to give you a heads up just in case we do experience some technical difficulties over the next few days. Hopefully none of it will be due to weather. Hopefully we won't have many or any, but you know how things go when it comes to technology. So if you run into any issues with the website this weekend, please just be patient with us. It probably won't be perfect on day one. We have it to a point where it can get up. It looks good. It's not perfect, you know, but we're getting there. It's going to take some time. But I'm really excited to get, you know, for you to see the improvements. It's just really going to be great. We're tickled pink with it. So it's going to be easier for you to find what you need. Again, downloads are going to be better. I mean, everything's going to be better about it. So again, should be happening tomorrow. So if you try to get in and log in or try to get into order, maybe just if it's not working, give us, you know, a few hours, maybe try again. But hopefully everything will run as smoothly as we can, as smoothly as possible. So before we move on, we need to pick our giveaway winner from last week's episode. And as a reminder, we give away a pattern to one person watching live and one person who watches the replay. So we have the name of everyone here who entered, and I'm going to draw a winner. And we asked you to share your first name and one product you would like to see us carry in the store this year. Like, what would you like to see us add? Okay, so we have the name of everybody here. I would like to mix them up a little bit. And we have Maria. So Maria says, would like to see your sewing machines and supplies you use for sewing bags. Okay, well, that sounds great. So one other thing, Maria, that I think this is going to be a good opportunity, believe it or not, we have one more thing we're doing because, you know, we never can have enough things going on around here. We're actually moving, I guess the better word, our filming studio. So we have, a lot of you know, we bought a warehouse this year, and the warehouse got renovated and the office space got renovated a little bit. And so now our office, basically our headquarters, are located in Thompson, Georgia. The warehouse is in Thompson, Georgia. And there was another little building on the property. We just didn't really know what to do with it. It's like an old block building. And so we said, well, just, you know, hate to tear it down because it seems like a good building, but we're just going to let it be for a while. Well, what we've decided to do with it is turn it into our recording studio. So right now, all of our recordings, like what we're doing right now, happen at my home studio. And so we are going to switch that out. We're renovating that recording studio right now. And so hopefully by mid to late February, we're actually going to be in the new recording studio. We'll be doing all the live streams there. I'll be doing, you know, some sewing there. I'll be still doing probably some sewing in my home studio, but it's going to be kind of a mix. And we're really excited about it. We really appreciate your patience as we have, you know, we struggled with audio some this year. Lighting's always, you know, we hope it's okay, but some days it seems better than others. But hopefully we're going to have a lot more control over those things. My studio is really big at home, and we know we had some echoing issues. This is going to be a smaller space, more confined, and therefore more controlled. So when that happens, we're definitely going to be going over some of those things, Maria. I'll show you more in depth on maybe some machines. I think that would be a great thing to do, and just kind of show you what's going on. All right. So Maria, make sure that you email us, share@simplyclassic.net within 30 days to claim your prize. And for everybody else, stick around because we're going to do another giveaway at the end of the show. So now it's time to sew, and this is time for our pattern hack. So every other week on the Bag Maker's Workroom, I show you how to hack the pattern of the week, whatever it may be, to get kind of a different look. And this week, we're turning the Sorella hip bag into a more masculine bag inspired by Prada. So this is our inspiration today. It's a nylon and suede men's bag, which can be worn either as a sling or a waist bag. There's a few things that make this bag look masculine, and we kind of went over what these things were last week. We have, of course, black hardware. We have a webbing strap. The brown and green color scheme make it more masculine. But I also want you to look at the proportions. This is something we talked about last week. Men's bags tend to be taller and slimmer than women's bags of the same style. And they're often emulating the look of a briefcase or a messenger bag, which have that kind of slim and squared off shape without a lot of curves. So we can definitely see here that this bag is taller than most women's hip bags. And even though it has curved corners, it's still pretty boxy overall. So this is the bag that I made. I'm just going to hold it up here for just a second. And you can see, and I kind of showed you this last week, but this is what we're going to be making today. And compared to that Prada bag, it's actually quite different. I always try to stick to the inspirations as closely as possible. But on this one here, I added some binding. I did use the nickel hardware, and black hardware kind of mixed together. Let's see what else. I think this bag turned out a little taller, but we'll go over all that in a minute. What I wanted to do is just let you know that, this is what we're going to end up with when it's all done. This is our original Sorella pattern. Okay, so you can see how different they look. The Sorella, the original Sorella, is a little curvier. It's a little shorter. Okay. And you can see when we go over these pattern changes, also the shape is different. See how this, here, let me move this up. See this shape, how these little arms come out? Whereas the Sorella doesn't really have that. The original Sorella kind of goes in there. Okay, but we're going to go over all that in the video. So just as a reminder, this is our feature pattern of the week. It's on sale for $12.49 for the PDF version. So now I'm going to play the tutorial for you. It is pre-recorded, but after it's done, we'll come back and answer any questions that you may have. So if you do have any questions, type them in the chat. Also, I filmed a full-length tutorial that's much longer, and that video will be posted right after the live stream ends, so you can watch the entire thing. These are just some clips from it. So let's take a look.
First thing, let's look at the inspiration piece versus the actual Sorella. And see what is different about it and what we can change and maybe what we're not willing to change, or it's too many pattern changes to change. So the first thing is, you can see on the actual inspiration piece, we have sides that tend to come out a little bit more, okay? Where the Sorella doesn't do that. And I'm going to actually take these off for a second so we can look at it a little bit closer. So you can see that the Sorella kind of comes in here. This bag tends to go out. The original pattern piece looks like this. And so what this pattern piece does is it takes the bag and brings it in here at the corner. We want this to come out. And what that's going to do is, in addition to taking out the feminine curve of the bag, it's also going to give us a spot to connect our strap. Okay, so that's the first thing we want to do. So the other thing that I think I want to do is to change the flap. So you can see that the Sorella has kind of a more curved flap here, where this is more of a straight flap. Again, something that makes it more of a masculine bag is because it takes the curves out. So this is the original pattern piece for the Sorella. And so you can see here we have a little indentation, and then we have this curve. Now we still have a curve on this bag, okay? We still have a curve for the flap, but not as extreme, and it doesn't come out the way this does. So we'll change this piece as well. Another thing that is really different about this bag is the flap goes over the top of the bag instead of being attached to the bag. So you can see here with the Sorella, it kind of breaks it up where you can see the zipper. Zipper, can make it a little more feminine depending on what kind of zipper you have. But what I'm going to do is also add to the height of this flap so that we can actually attach the flap to the back and it comes all the way down. And then, of course, the last thing I want to do is looking at the strap connector. The connector here is more of a standard buckle type. They used a nickel one. We have them in black, so I'm going to use black. And of course, they use webbing for their strap. I'll do that as well. This is a more feminine, obviously, connector or closure. You've got some shape to it. So I'm going to leave these two pieces off. I'm not even going to worry about cutting these. And instead, we'll use some webbing and we'll use one of these strap connectors. Now, things about this bag that I'm not going to change. You can see here that we've got a piece of leather or something at the bottom. I think what this bag is, it's a little bit deeper than the Sorella. The way I'm going to account for that is I'm going to do the gusset in a different color. So this Sorella, of course, does have a nice big pocket with some credit card slots, but instead of trying to add to the or rework the entire bag, that would be a totally different bag to do it exactly the way this is. All I'm going to do for that is to just go ahead and make the gusset in a different color. This is a totally different shape, the way this is put together. The Sorella has a gusset, this bag does not. That would be a totally new pattern versus a pattern change. So let me show you how to make these pattern changes. So the first thing we want to do, as I mentioned, is to change the shape of this because we want this to come out more so that we have something to attach our strap connector to. So what I'm going to do is take a piece of paper and just cut it in half. And then I'm just going to tape it, make sure my tops are even, and go ahead and tape it down to this piece of paper. I'm keeping it out of the zipper opening. And I want to connect this. Now, my question is, and this is obviously personal preference, do you want this piece to come out this far or do you want it to come in some? I think I don't want it to come out quite this far, but I do want to make sure I have enough to hang on to. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and connect it. And if I have to trim it down afterwards, I can, after I cut the whole thing out. So I'm just going to, you can do this in so many different ways. I'm just going to kind of freehand this and just draw a line, kind of going like this. So now I'm going to cut that out. And I certainly don't want to change the shape of the bag. And then what I'm going to do is take another piece of paper and just copy this pattern piece and then tape it together because I like to work with full pattern pieces. So I'll just duplicate this on another piece of paper. I'm not going to try to recreate this curve. I've already done it once. I'm just going to, again, put a piece of paper on top, trace it out, or cut it out, and then tape the two pieces together. Okay, so I'll do that. I'm sure you understand how to do it. Now, as far as the flap, let's take a look at that. So I said I wanted to increase the height of the flap and take these curves off. So the first thing I'm going to do is tape a piece of paper to the top of the flap. And then I'm going to add 2 inches and I'm going to cut. Okay, easy enough. Now the next thing we need to do is take out these curves. And I want this to come straight down. So I'm going to take my ruler again and I'm just going to line it up with the top and cut this off. And you can see how little I'm cutting off. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Go ahead and line it up and cut that off. Okay, so now you can see you have a flap here that's got kind of a weird curve. Obviously, we don't want that. We need to even out that curve. And you can do that in a couple different ways. You can take something you have around your workroom, maybe something with a curve on it, and go ahead and cut that in. One thing I want to caution you though is if the curve is too small, okay, so you can see here, this is not a very curvy curve, I guess is the way to say it. It's going to be harder to get that binding around because we are going to do binding on this bag on the flap, just like the inspiration piece. So the deeper the curve, the better. However, the deeper the curve, the less masculine it is. So I have this Creative Grids ruler. I have a 1.5 inch corner on this. I'm going to line this up and cut that out. And, you know, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And so now we have a pretty standard straight flap. Okay, so when you go to cut out all the pattern pieces, you're going to, of course, cut out 2 flat pieces. You're going to cut out 2 back pieces once you have this back put together. The front piece does not change, okay? So your front piece looks like this. You're going to cut it out exactly as the pattern says. The gusset does not change, okay? That's the same. I'm going to not cut the connector pieces, so I'll set those aside. And then your lining pieces are the same. And this is all the lining pieces. The gusset lining piece, the main body lining piece, the front lining piece, all that stays the same. I'm going to do this out of leather. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut the leather because I know a lot of you are interested in that. I'm going to use a olive green, just like the inspiration. Although the inspiration is a canvas with leather accents, I'm going to actually use olive leather with camel leather accents. So this is the leather I have. This is my olive green, and this is all I have, about half a hide. And then I have this holy camel that I'm going to use. And you can see this is only a 2 to 3 square foot. It's not very big. And I'm going to make this work with this leather. So I'm going to first lay my pattern pieces out on the leather. So remember, leather has no grain, so you can put these pieces in any configuration that you want. So first thing I always do whenever I'm working with leather is to lay them on the piece first. So I can see this will work here. If I flip it, it will work there. I need a front piece out of this leather. And I need 2 flat pieces. Well, I only have enough for 1 flat piece. No matter how I lay this out, I'm only going to get 1 flat piece. So what I'm going to do is do the underside of the flap in this camel color. Okay, so to cut this leather, it's really no different than faux. So I'm going to flip this around because I'm right-handed and cut these pieces out. I'm just going to use regular ruler and rotary cutter to do this. The other things that we're going to need from this hide is going to be the binding. And so I am going to look and see. It's going to be tight, but I think we can go ahead and get a couple pieces. So for these binding pieces, I'm going to cut 3/4 of an inch. So I'm probably just going to cut 2 just to make sure I have enough. Okay, now the last thing that we need is we're going to need like these connector pieces. So let's go over all of the pattern pieces that I have cut. So I went ahead and cut the credit card slot. I feel like this bag is really ideal for that because obviously a lot of times you're traveling with this and it's hard to carry a wallet. So I cut a credit card piece out of the camel and then of course my olive adhesive lining. No changes on that pattern piece. The adhesive lining for the zipper pocket, I have 2 pieces just like the pattern says. No change to that. Everything's the same there. For the back piece, I have 2 back pieces, and again, we changed the pattern slightly. You saw how we did that. So I have 2 pattern pieces for that, and of course, one of them has the zipper opening cut out of it. Then I have a couple pieces of binding that I cut out of the camel, and I have a couple of strap connectors that I cut out of the camel. We went over that. The flap, because I didn't have enough of the olive to cut 2 flat pieces, I'm actually using olive on one side, and then I'm going to use this camel on the other side. And then for the front, I just cut 1 front piece out of the olive leather, just like normal, no changes. And then of course I have 1 piece of the adhesive lining out of the olive. And then I have my gusset pieces, 1 adhesive lining and 1 leather piece. If you look at the inspiration picture, there's actually a buckle, black buckle piece right there. And what that does is allows this to tighten and then loosen, which is helpful because if this gets too much in it, you may need to loosen it. The other thing is that you can see there's a little piece of leather there on the end. So what I did is I have my second piece, or my last piece here of webbing. This can be as long or as short as you want it to be. Mine is about 10 inches. I went ahead and put a piece of leather on the end, just like you've seen me do with some of the other pieces. We're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to place the buckle on the strap, and then we're going to thread both of these through and then through the other strap connector. Okay. Now what's going to happen is we're going to attach this part to the bottom of the bag, and that's going to allow us to have something to connect to, and then we can tighten or we can loosen as we see fit or need to. So go ahead, and once you do that, set this piece aside, and then we'll use it when we stitch together the bag. So now we're going to work on the flap, and the flap is obviously a little bit different. I have this holy camel I'm using, and you can see, it's kind of see-through. So when I put it on the other piece, you're going to be able to see a little bit of that color through. But what I don't want to do is put a bunch of double-sided tape on here, and you'll be able to see the tape through the holes. The other thing is you can't really glue this because it has holes in it. So I'm just going to have to wonder clip it, and I'm just going to come as close as possible. Now we are going to be binding this. So I'm going to stitch this at about 1/4 inch, and then we'll go back and trim it so that we can put our binding around it. So use some wonder clips to hold it in place for right now. I'm not going to worry about stitching the top just yet. And if you have a bag tag, obviously this is where Prada put theirs. My bag tag is very feminine, and so I'm not going to put one on here. What I will do is put one on the inside, but on the outside I just don't think it's going to look appropriate. So I'm going to stitch using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we'll trim it down. So now that this is sewn together, I'm going to just trim this down. And this does 2 things. It obviously lessens our seam allowance so we can get that binding around it, but it also evens up these edges so the binding will go on really nice. So get your binding when you're binding pieces. I cut 2 because I wasn't sure how many I was going to need. But what I want to do is to go ahead and flip this around. So I'm just going to use wonder clips to hold all of this in place. And I want to make sure I'm covering my stitching, obviously, front and back. And we're going to stitch right along the edge. Looks like this piece of binding is going to barely make it. Let's see if I can make it work. Okay, so I'm going to stitch from the right side, and I'm just going to go really slow, and I'm going to stitch right along the edge. I mean, I'm talking about like a scant 1/8 inch seam allowance. so here's the flap, and everything on the back looks good except for this one area right here I missed. So, comes in threes, right? I'm going to take this apart. Now, the good thing about using the Holy Camel is you have holes, so, you know, it's not really going to show that much when you have to stitch back through it. But I'm just going to take apart what I need. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. Go back and stitch, make sure it's all caught, and then we will move on to the next step. Okay, I have this fixed up, so we are good to go. Now we need to go ahead and put this on. And the best way, I think, is going to be to just stitch it on. I don't know what the back looks like. I could not find any pictures of the bag opened. So I really think that that's probably how they did it. And they probably did it when they did their top stitching, which of course I did not do, but that's okay. I'm just going to try to go over the same stitches. And honestly, I might even do a second line up in here, even though I really don't want to, but I want to make sure this is strong enough so that when it's pulled on, it doesn't tear or, you know, we don't have any problems. Now, what that means is in the back, we're going to have these pieces, which we don't necessarily want. So I'm going to take and I'm going to go to my machine that has the black thread and I'm going to stitch them together and then I'm going to cut them off and I'm just going to cover that with a piece of scrap so that you don't see the ends and then you'll just see that little bit on the back side. So now that that's done, I'm going to find the center of my flap and then of course this is going to be a little bit thick, so we're going to see how this Burnette handles it. I think we're going to be okay. And what I'm going to do is just try to stitch right on top of the stitches that I previously stitched. And I'm going to do a back stitch there. I mean, I think it needs it and it's just going to have to be okay. I think it will be okay. I'm going to turn, if I can, all the way around so I can stitch back in the other direction and see my stitches. And here's what we have. I mean, you can barely tell I stitched there. I mean, you can tell if you look really close, but not that much. And on the back, all you see is black. So it worked out well. I have my gusset completed. I have my front completed. And then I have my 2 back pieces completed. Okay, now in the original pattern on the back piece, you're attaching part of the connector. We're not doing that in the same manner because obviously we have a different kind of connector. So as I take these 2 pieces, so this is essentially where my zipper pocket's going to be, and I put them together, I want to take the connector piece that we made earlier and I'm going to slip the bottom of it centered right in the seam. So now when I stitch this, I'm going to catch that and that's going to allow me to tighten and loosen this. And what I really want to make sure of, you know, these may not be exactly the same because we didn't, you know, as we cut, we can obviously make slight errors or differences. We can't cut everything exactly the same. But I do want to make sure, if I can, that this bottom edge is as close to being the same as possible. I can trim the top, but I can't trim this bottom because once I put that connector piece in, it's going to be hard to trim around it. So let me put some wonder clips in here. And you can see I've got a couple edges that don't meet up, and that's okay. We'll be able to trim those to get them as even as possible. Okay. Now you do a couple things. If you stitch around this, understand that when you go to stitch your gusset on, you're going to be stitching again. So you'll have 2 lines of stitches, and that's really not terrible. It's not a bad thing. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and attach the gusset to the front just like the pattern says. And then I will come back and attach the gusset to this piece here, just like the pattern says. So I pose a question. To bind or not to bind? You know, this is leather. It's not going to fray. So you could theoretically not bind at all. Another thing you could do is use adhesive lining. So I cut a strip of adhesive lining here that's 3/4 of an inch wide. And I'm going to try this. I have never tried this before, but I think it's going to work. Just take it, because it's sticky. It's not super sticky, but it's sticky enough. And just go ahead and put it around this seam. So it's going to hold everything in place as you stitch. It matches the lining. And, you know, I think it might work. That worked pretty good, I have to say. You can't even tell there's binding on there because it's the same color. And granted, I did stitch with a different color, but it looks pretty good. So from here, we need to put all of this together. I'm going to go ahead and clip all of this in place. So just do the best you can. And then when you're done, you can trim it down. And if you want, you can edge paint and base coat, or base coat and edge paint. I guess you do the base coat first. But you know, you don't even really have to, because it's leather and it's a raw edge and it's a man bag, and so, you know. So I'll be stitching this from the right side, or basically from the gusset side. Okay, so we're going to start here and we're going to stitch all the way around. I'm going to back stitch here, and I know it's going to show, but I think that with the connector being there, it's going to be smart to do that. I'm going to do a little back stitch here as well, right where the gusset meets the main part of the bag. Okay, so here is what we have. I'm going to get a piece of the Holy Camel and just see what it looks like if I put some binding up here. So if we start, say, about here and come around, I just want to see what that's going to look like. So, in my opinion, that's kind of a no-brainer. I think absolutely we do the binding. Okay, so now let's go ahead and attach the flap. So the flap's going to go this way, and as I'm looking at this, I can already tell you, guess where I want binding is right here along this edge. Okay, so I'm going to stitch on the binding to kind of hold the binding down. But then I'm also going to stitch one more time. And what I'm probably going to do is to flip this over and stitch again on this binding all the way down, just to have 2 lines of stitching. I'm going to need to move my zipper pull because it's really close to the zipper. So let me undo that. So that's the first stitch, and it actually came on the zipper tape a little bit. It doesn't hinder the pocket at all. So if you stitch this on, you might want to do it 3/4 of an inch instead of 1 inch. Okay, but I am going to stitch a second line, and I'm just going to try to stitch in the same holes as my binding piece up here. So here's what we have in the front, here's what we have in the back, and we can connect this and then tighten it. Okay, so you can see that is definitely much more masculine than the Sorella. Okay, I lost my footage for putting on the strap connectors. However, I don't like them. And to me, they're not wide enough, and they just look boxy. I don't like them. So I've been thinking about how to change it. And here's what I came up with. So on this side, I went ahead and I removed the rivet, removed the connector, the whole thing. And what I did was I cut a piece that looks like this. So it goes from 1.5 inches down to 1 inch. We need the 1 inch because the rectangle ring is 1 inch, but I think we need the 1.5 inch to go over this side here. So the way I cut this is I cut a piece that was 1.5 inches by 2 3/4 inches. And then I folded it in half and I cut 1/4, so 0.25 inch cutouts here, like little squares, like we do at the bottom of lining. And then I just rounded these edges, and this is what I came up with. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is to go ahead and actually, leather does stretch a little bit. I mean, you can see here, that's just leather. Okay, that's how it goes. So if you've taken one of my online bag making classes, I'd suggest you know what velodon is, and I would suggest putting a piece of velodon here. I actually don't have any here at my home studio, so I'm going to instead use a piece of adhesive lining. And what that's going to do is just help prevent this from stretching. Now again, I would typically use velodon, not this, but we make do with what we have. Okay, so now I'm going to place this in. And then I'm going to stitch this on. Okay, so here's what we have now. So when you compare the two, I think by far this is the better option here. You can still put a rivet if you want. I don't think I'm going to. The inspiration bag does not have one, so I think I'm just going to leave that rivet off. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up this side. Go ahead and do exactly the same thing, and then we'll take a look at the bag.
Okay, so you want to see the full video, make sure you go check it out. I think you got to kind of see my thought process kind of through hacks, with that video. A lot of times I try something and it doesn't really look that great, like those strap connectors, and you have to kind of redo. And so a lot of times hacks are on the fly, for lack of a better word. So we're going to go to the overhead. We're going to take a little bit closer look at the actual bag. Okay, so again, here we have the more masculine version of the Sorella. First thing you can see, of course, the shape is much different. Instead of going in, the Sorella goes in, this goes out. The mix of the nickel and the black hardware is a little different for me. I don't know that I really would have done that. But again, following the inspiration bag as closely as possible, I did it, and it really looks kind of cool. Of course, we have our Holy Camel, which is kind of a suede version of leather, and then our olive leather, just trying to kind of copy the same as the inspiration bag. On the inside, of course, we have our zipper pocket and the credit card slots. Okay. And then, of course, that binding, that stuff was amazing to be able to use the adhesive lining for binding. It was so easy to do. It turned out great. I absolutely love it. So, there's probably other versions we could do, but I kind of like the way this turned out. And you saw the pattern changes. They weren't drastic. There was maybe a few more than normal, but they were super simple to do. And I hope that by me really showing you how to make the changes at the beginning with the overhead helped. I know sometimes just explaining it's hard, but when you can visualize it, it gets to be a little bit easier. So let's see what kind of questions we have, because I do know that some of you had some questions throughout the video. Okay, so Lady Fair Donna said, do you recommend a Teflon foot for sewing leather? And absolutely, yes, I do. Now, I will say on the Burnett, which is what I sewed this on, I used a Teflon foot. And actually, I keep my Teflon foot on all the time. I never take it off. I just leave it on there. If you're using an industrial machine, which you could certainly do with this bag, then you're going to use a walking foot, and that should be perfect for it because, either one or the other makes a difference. And of course, adjustments on the Burnett, I tried to tell you when to lessen your press of foot tension, maybe when to make it a little tighter. Hopefully all that helped as well. And that you'll see more of that in the full version of the hack. So Grammy Jan said, would your faux suede work for the binding? Absolutely it would. And actually, we sent faux suede in our last subscription box to use as binding, and it works out fantastic. So I would say that would be a really great, if you want to do this in faux leather, I would say that we have a green that is called, I think, sage green. That's almost exactly like the olive. And then I think that the faux suede and the camel would be a great comparison to this if you wanted to use faux leather. So Mary says, what was that adhesive lining for the binding part? Is it a sticky product that you attach to the lining fabric? Yes. So we're going to go back to the overhead. Adhesive lining is a nylon fabric that has an adhesive backing. Okay. So that's what this is right here. And so it's super thin, and a lot of times we use it in wallets, card slots, that type of thing, but it's also used in the Sorella pattern. It's used in the Eva pattern as well. So here's a couple of sheets of it. Okay, this is how it comes. And you can see it is just it's like less than 0.1 millimeter thick. It is a super thin, and it has a backing that peels off, usually easier than this. There we go. And it's sticky, but it's not so sticky. It'll stick to your finger, but it's not so sticky that once it's down, you could peel it off and reposition it if you had to. And a lot of times when I use this, I will actually leave the paper backing on. I'll stitch like right sides together. Then I'll peel the backing off and I'll go ahead and stick it down. And it just gives it a really nice, thin, kind of slippery surface. A lot of times with the adhesive lining, you can see here, it almost looks like there's little bubbles in it, but don't worry, because what happens is as you take the backing off and you go ahead and lay that flat, all those bubbles go away. Okay, so when you actually lay it on your fabric, the bubbles go away. So when you get it, it's rolled up, but you can see as I laid that flatter, how nice and flat that became. Okay, so it's really a great product. Again, card slots, wallets, the Eva bag, the Sorella bag, all of those things use adhesive lining. I wouldn't use it in a bag, like a large tote bag or anything, but it's really great for these other things. And we have it in several colors, by the way. Okay, so Tree 60 Handmade Bag says, I have a Jack 6380 walking foot. Is there a Teflon walking foot without ridges that could ruin your leather? So I don't think it's a Teflon foot, but if I'm thinking right, that Jack is an industrial walking foot machine. Some walking foot machines, I'm trying to think, you can buy feet that don't have the ridges on them. So let me see. I think I might have one right here. Give me 1 second to see if I can grab it. Okay, the only one I have, I'm going to go to the overhead right by me. See, this one here has feet on it, or ridges on it. Okay. There you go. You can kind of see that. It has ridges. But you can actually buy some that don't have those ridges on them. So most industrial feet at least for my machines, are kind of interchangeable. And so just look for something that doesn't have those ridges. Again, I think you can order that, and then that will help when working with leather. Okay, that's a great question. So Tree 60 Handmade Bag says, LOL, the Sorella is the female name, and the Soretti could be the male version. That's true. And I think the male, so Sorella in Italian is sister, and I think brother in Italian is fratello or something. And so we could, yeah, any one of those would be fantastic names for it. I love it. Okay, so we are now going to move on to Artistry Avenue, and it's time for us to choose 3 bags that were posted in the Simply Classic bag making community on Facebook or emailed to share@simplyclassic.net. So if we feature your bag, you'll get a free PDF pattern of your choice. You do have 30 days to email share@simplyclassic.net and let us know you were featured. This is open worldwide. So let's take a look at our first bag. So this was made by Mary Lou, and she made this beautiful Sorella, which is our featured pattern. She kept it very classic. I love that she used the same material for everything, even the strap, the entire bag. I think that's great. It looks good in different materials, and it looks good all in the same material as well. And this is a perfect example of it. And you did a great job photographing this too. I really like the kind of rustic vibe with it. I think it looks great. Joe made this really beautiful leather. This is leather now, okay? Leather, yellow leather Zara. And he made it for his niece. And he said that she loves sunflowers. So he used his 50-watt laser engraver to add a sunflower design. Didn't it come out beautiful? I love this. He added a tassel. You can see that kind of matching tassel there. And man, what a thoughtful gift. It is absolutely gorgeous. And then Kathy made this busta using a pink faux crocodile. She used gold tone hardware. Really beautiful with this. I love it. It's really gorgeous. We don't carry gold hardware, but you know, it's very classy. It looks very, very nice. I love this so much. So again, it just gives it that kind of upscale look. And that turn lock is absolutely gorgeous. I don't know where you got it, but it is beautiful. I've never seen anything like it before. It's gorgeous. And even the thread matches. So fantastic job, Kathy. So thank you so much to our featured artists, Mary Lou, Joe, and Kathy, for sharing your amazing makes. Don't forget to email share@simplyclassic.net within 30 days to let us know which PDF pattern you would like. So before we move on to our Q&A, let's talk about our 2 giveaways. We're giving away 2 PDF patterns of your choice. We'll choose 1 live stream winner from the chat and 1 replay winner from the comments. So if you're watching live on Thursday, here's how to enter. All you need to do is type the word winter in the chat. Please only enter the keyword 1 time, and we will have the computer pick a winner. This is open worldwide. If you're watching the replay, you can also enter the win. Just leave a comment and include your first name and the answer to this question. What is one thing that makes a bag feel luxury to you? Okay, is it a certain color hardware? Maybe it's a certain color bag. Maybe it's a certain shape bag or a certain structure bag. Whatever it is, what makes it feel like a luxury bag to you? So you have until next Wednesday to enter, and we'll randomly choose a winner on next week's episode. So let's take a look at our questions. We actually had a question on last week's episode, and Keto9947 asked, what machine do you do most of your bags on? So what machine do I typically sew on? She says she has a cylinder arm, but she was wondering if a flatbed is needed. And the answer is no, flatbed is not needed. However, I would say for certain seams, basically when you're trying to stitch two seams together, just 2 pieces of fabric, wrong or right sides together or wrong sides together, and just stitching straight. It's nice to have that flat bed because you can lay the fabric flat. On a cylinder arm, it would kind of fall to the side, and you wouldn't have as big of a bed to lay it nice and flat on. But with that having been said, here's what I suggest is don't go out and buy a flatbed machine. Do something, either buy a flatbed adapter for your cylinder arm so you can change it back and forth as you need it. Or if you have somebody in your life, or maybe you are good with wood, make yourself a nice big wooden flatbed and just cut out the section that your cylinder arm kind of juts out. And that way you can make it as big or as small as you want, and you can just pull it off, stitch the cylinder arm, put it back on, stitches the flatbed. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy a flatbed piece that attaches on. I've seen them made out of wood, and they really are nice. You can go ahead and sand it down, put some polyurethane on it, so that way your fabric doesn't get caught on it, and it's easy. You just put it on, take it off. There's nothing to screw in or anything. It just lays on your machine. That's assuming you don't have a post bed machine. If you have a post bed machine, you got a kind of different animal. But if you have I think they're called a U-shaped machine, you can easily do that. So that's what I would suggest. I think that would be a great addition. It's just that one little piece, then you have everything you need. Okay, so Liz Stiegel says, what is the pattern name for the bag on the top shelf? So that is a Kaplan up there. And it, again, was a subscription box. The Kaplan is kind of a gender neutral bag too. It could go either way. I think that when it comes time for us to get to the Kaplan again, as we go through these patterns, I'm probably going to do a hack to take the curves off somehow and to actually maybe extend the flap and make it more of like a messenger kind of bag. I think that would be a really great option. But it's called the Kaplan, Kaplan, and it has a really cool slip pocket on the back. So Grammy Jan says, any idea when the faux leather mystery box will be available? I love waiting to see what I received. So we just mailed out our fourth quarter mystery boxes, our fourth quarter subscription boxes. So that was, end of it was December 31st. So of course, by now everybody should have gotten their box, and that was the Talise. So our next sign up period is going to be March. So it's going to be March 15th through 30th. Now, I think I misunderstood your question, and I think you were asking about the damage rolls that, just the faux mystery boxes. So what happens is that when we cut faux leather, we cut it in our shop, in our warehouse, things are damaged, things get damaged, something either doesn't get cut right, or you'd be amazed sometimes what we find on the, or in the faux, we find, holes. Sometimes it's all crazy. But anyway, as we cut those, we're going to have damaged stuff. So we pretty much ran out of the damaged stuff from the last cut. But we actually are in the process now that the holidays are over of starting back up cutting again. So the more we cut, the more we're going to have the damaged boxes. So keep your eye out for them. We'll probably have some hopefully in February. And it's just going to be, whatever the faux are that we happen to be cutting at that time. Okay, let's see if we have a winner. So the pattern winner is Mary Riggins 2396. So please email share@simplyclassic.net. If you can do that within the next 24 hours and let us know that you won the pattern giveaway, that would be fantastic, and congratulations. So thank you for joining me for the Bag Maker's Workroom. Make sure you join us next Thursday, January 29th at 7 p.m. for our new pattern. That's going to be our new pattern day. And full disclosure, next week's going to be kind of a mixture of live and pre-recorded. I actually got called up to Chicago next week to do some filming with my distributor, so I will not be here physically on Thursday. I'm going to have a little bit of pre-recorded. Shauna and Taylor are going to be here, and you're probably going to actually see them on camera a little bit as we do some of the drawings and things like that. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So don't forget to submit your Simply Classic makes by posting them in the Facebook group or emailing share@simplyclassic.net. And please remember to click that thumbs up button on the way out. So until next time, everybody stay warm and happy sewing.